Hello and welcome to this instructional video on CATIA prismatic machining. Today what we're going to look at is the interface for the prismatic machining workbench, just to familiarize yourself a little bit with it. Before you do this video, you should probably have gone through and looked at how you go about setting up your prismatic machining workbench options. That's important, so I'd suggest you do that before doing this video. What I have in front of me here is a part that has already been used for creating toolpaths. Typically when you first get into the machining workbench, you won't have any of the stuff, some of the stuff that I'm going to show you, but in order to explain how the interface is laid out, it's important for me to have something that has already been used. So let's go ahead and look at the interface. You'll see here on the left hand side we have a tree, and then around, of course, the frame we have your toolbars, particularly over here on the right. Now let's go back to the tree. The tree over here is somewhat different from what you've seen in the past with your part design feature tree as well as your assembly design part tree. In the machining workbench, the trees are called Ppr trees, Ppr standing for process, product, and resources. And as we expand each branch out in the tree, just like in the assembly design workbench or the part design workbench, you drill down deeper and deeper into the information that you have in the tree. So let's look at the very first part of the tree, the process list. So in the process list we have, if we expand out the node that's right below it, we have a process. One could have multiple processes in the tree. A process might refer to, let's say you were doing a different type of process, like instead of machining you might be doing welding or grinding. Then you could have another process here that pertains to those particular operations that fall under it. Normally you're not going to have more than one process in your tree when you're doing machining, so it'll just be a single entry. Below the process node we have the part operation node. The part operation node, the best way to think about this is a setup. So every setup that one has in machining a part, you'd probably want to have a part operation in the tree for it. And there's a way to insert part operations as you learn by and by. So think of it as a setup. So in most of the parts that you're going to be machining, you have multiple setups set up on one side, and then you flip the part over. Each one of those can be referred to as a part operation. If we expand out the part operation, we have a manufacturing program, and the best way to think of this is a G&M code program. So it's possible in one setup you may have multiple G&M code programs that are doing several things, or maybe machining two different parts in the same setup. That's possible too. So a manufacturing program contains all the code for doing that. And then inside a manufacturing program, if you expand out that node, you will see that there are a bunch of tool change operations. So every time you change a tool to move from one tool to another, there is a tool change operation that's inserted. And then if you expand out the tool change node, any one of those, you'll eventually get to your machining operation. In this case, the first tool change brings up a face mill, so what I have in here is a facing operation. The second tool change, I have two types of operations in here. I have a profile for contouring around the part, and then I have a pocketing operation that machines out the inside. The reason why there are two operations in here is because I'm using the same tool. So essentially, if you think about this, this is where your tool change happens. Let's say it's tool 2, so this would be T02M06, and then you would have the tool coming down and doing the profiling operation, then the pocketing operation, and then the tool would go home in Y and Z, and then you'd perform another tool change to bring up a center drill, probably to center drill out these holes. So that's kind of the way this is set up. If you expand out the operation node, you'll see the tool paths that have been generated for that particular operation. So that's what's happening under the part operation and the process list. If we go down one more level to the product list, this is where we have our part. So right now we have the example part, which is shown here. If you drill down one more level, you'll see the part body, And then hidden right now is the stock. This is actually a multi-body part, so I have two bodies within this one part. If I unhide the raw stock, you'll see it there in red. So that's the material you start off with. The part body or the design is what you want to end up with when you machine away the excess material. Now, this is just one way in which you can set up your part and workpiece. Another way is to use an assembly, where in the assembly you have the body in one part and the stock in a totally different part. And you'll see how to do that by and by too during the term. So if you ever want to go in to change the features on your part, you can see here if you drill down far enough you actually get to the features. And if I double click on, let's say, this pad, you will notice that my frame has changed and I'm now in the part design workbench. So it's possible for me now to go in and change a feature or to add a new feature just like you would do normally. However, notice that even though I'm in the part design workbench, I can still see the full PPR tree here on the left. So in some sense it's similar to what happens in assembly. It's like what happens in design and context in assembly, where you can drill down into the part and change the features, but you're still in the assembly mode. To get back to the into the machining workbench, all I need to do is come up and double click on, let's say, the part operation, and as you can see I'm back into the machining workbench with the machining toolbars present. So that's the product list. You may also have inside here fixture elements. So if you have fixturing that you want to include in your product, that might also be in here too. Finally, the last entry in the PPR tree is the resource list, and what you will see in here are all the resources that you create to do the machining of your part. Typically the very first resource that you create is the machine. You have to define the machine that you're going to be doing your machining on. This is a 3-axis machine. Inside the machine you'll have things like your machining coordinate system, the post processor that you're going to use, safety planes, things like that. And then after your machine you typically have the tools that are used to machine your part. So as you can see here, I have a face mill, a 2-inch face mill, 1-inch end mill, center drill, and a drill. So as you add tools to your to perform your operations, they get added to the tree from the top downwards. And finally, let's talk a little bit about the toolbars. There are lots of toolbars in the various machining workbenches. However, there are of course important ones, more important ones that you need to know. So let's look at the frame over here. There's this small toolbar up here, and this toolbar here is your manufacturing operations and programs toolbar. As I said earlier on, your part operation is equivalent to a setup. Let's say I wanted to have a second setup for this process. What I would do is I'd come over here and click on the part operation tool, and then by clicking on the part operation here, what CATIA does is it inserts a part operation right below the first one. So I'm going to just cancel this off. So now you have, this could be setup 1 and this could be setup 2. Now obviously for setup 2 there's nothing defined in there yet. Similarly, if I wanted to, I could add another manufacturing program in each of these setups. Let's say I wanted to add a second program, and this could be a way in which you would generate a separate GNM code file for the same setup. I would click on the manufacturing program, and notice that it inserted it before this program because I had this highlighted. Similarly, let's unselect so that nothing is highlighted. I'm going to click this, and notice it puts the program afterwards. I can also add a new manufacturing program to the new setup or new part operation I just created. And there you can see, if you expand out the node, that there's a manufacturing program in there. Now I don't need all these manufacturing programs for this example, so I'm just going to delete some of them, the ones I just created. So I'm back to where I started. So this is one toolbar that you may use if you're creating multiple setups. The really important toolbar is the one where you create your machining operations. I'm going to just drag it out here so you can see it. Machining operations toolbar. The very first tool on this toolbar, it's actually a set of tools because there's a flyout. These are all the different types of hole operations that you can do in CATIA. As you can see, it's pretty extensive. More than likely you're only going to be doing things like drilling, which is the first tool, spot drilling, maybe doing some deep hole drilling, tapping. As you get further down, you get into things like boring or reaming, which we probably or definitely won't be covering in this class. But as you can see, there's something for almost every hole operation captured here in the toolbar. As you move across, there are pocketing operations, facing operations, profile contouring, curve following, and so on. So this is where you would come to select the type of operation that you want to have CATIA perform for you. Each operation requires you to go ahead and define geometry, define the tool, and so on. And we'll get to that by and by as we look at these tools. The last toolbar that I'm going to point out today, or with this video, is your NC Output Management toolbar. This is where you'd come to eventually generate your GNM code. So there are tools in here. For example, these tools under the second flyout, which allow you to generate NC code either in batch mode or interactively. And of course, we'll get to this. I'll show you how to use this by and by too. So that in a nutshell, again, is the overview of the interface. Obviously, as you start using it to do your toolpath generation, you'll become more familiar with where things are. But hopefully you have an appreciation now of the structure of a process file, a cat process file, and the main things that go into generating a toolpath file for machining.